Welcome to DataViz Daily. I'm Kevin McGinley, and it's fantasy football time again. So I thought I'd bring out the football data that I tend to collect over the course of the season and use it as one of the fun data sets that I like to fool around with and analyze. And so I thought I'd actually bust out DVD3 here and show you a sort of use case that I think warrants the new data flows feature. It shows kind of a good use case for what we can do with that. So basically what we have here is a situation where I've taken all the different fantasy football players by their position here and listed how many points they had over the course of last season. And I've ranked them. I created a rank calculation here, very simple, rank on points, sorted it. And so you can see here, who are the highest scoring players and what their sort of rank was. But where this gets interesting is to do some kind of very specific analysis. Sometimes you need to, be able to sort of freeze this rank within the context of the bigger picture. So for example, if I come here to position all, so first of all, I guess let me just first note here, we got Aaron Rodgers, who's a rank 2, Drew Brees is 3, Matt Ryan's 4, Kirk Cousins is 7. Those are all quarterbacks. But if I come here to quarterback and make that selection, now you see Aaron Rodgers is 1, Drew Brees is 2, Matt Ryan's 3, Kirk Cousins is 4. So I've lost the sort of perspective of, what they were for the entire sort of entire data set of players regardless of position. And not to go into the details and show you all the examples, but no matter what I do down here from a calculation standpoint, I can never really freeze that ranking. So this is a great example of where I can use data flows to help. So I'm going to come back out to the home screen here and go to my data sources, and instead of building these on the fly for you, I'm going to actually show you some ones that I've built. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and come into this one that I've called NFL Fantasy Football Ranks. Let's open that up and see what's happening here. So we've got our data set. So we've got all of the different players by year for a given week. What all their different stats were, and that ends up in a number of fantasy points. And so what I do here is I don't want the entire data set. I don't care about their actual statistics. I only care about their fantasy points. So if we move to the next step in the flow, you can see here what I've done is I've selected certain columns. So I only want their position, the year, the name, the team, and their points. And what I can do then is if I do an aggregate function, now this isn't going to look very obvious here in the change of the data, but when I was over on this stage, I was actually getting every single week for every single player repeated. So there would be a single line for each player. Now it's hard to tell that here because in our sort of preview of the data, all the different players' names are unique. So you can't actually see that here, but if I were to scroll down, you'd actually start to see some of these names repeat. So by aggregating and saying basically I want to do points by sum across position, year, name, and team, I now get how many points that they had within a given year for a given player. And then what I did is I went ahead and added 2 columns. I added a year rank because I really don't ever sort of care about their rank across multiple years. Each year is sort of its own distinct thing within football. It's really hard to compare year over year. But ultimately, we've got here rank points by year, and that's our first one. So it doesn't matter what position the player plays, how do their points for a given year rank against any other player. And then I added one called position rank. So rank points by year, comma, position. That actually gets me the ranking within a given position for a given year. So you can see here Andrew Luck, for example, in 2013 was the 13th ranked player overall, but within the position was actually the 7th ranked quarterback. And then what we do is we bring that out to a data set called NFL Fantasy Football Ranks, which you can see. I come up here to my data sources. You can actually see that right here. So if we go back to our data flows, I also had another data set here. And this is the draft in which the league, one of the leagues that I was in. And you can see here for a given round and a given pick, which player was taken, what position, which manager took them. And you can ultimately see then, sort of what round and pick that particular person, was done in. So I come here to add columns, and what I did is I just added a simple rsum. Since my data is already sorted by round and pick, I wanted just an overall pick so that I could see, okay, second round first pick is actually the 13th player taken overall. And I went ahead and saved that into 2016 BRB Enhanced. And if we come back out here to our data sources, what I did then in the last data flow is I actually combined those ranks with when they were drafted. So let's open this one up. This one's pretty interesting here. So the first thing that we've got is both data files defined. And in this case, I put a filter on for 2016 on my actual ranking data. Because if you recall, you could see 2013, 2015, 2014 in the data. I really only want 2016 because this draft data that I had here is only for the year 2016. So then I join these together. In this case, I can join them on the player name and their position. And we can ultimately save that out to a new file. Now what's interesting here is I actually wanted all rows from the first data set. So in this case, all of the player rankings, but only the matching rows in the second data set, because you'll notice here, like for example, Alex Smith, Blaine Gabbert, those two weren't drafted at all. It's interesting to see how does a player, sort of fall from a year ranking, position ranking, when they weren't drafted as an overall pick. So what that allows me to do then, if I come back out here to what data set that ends up with, FF Rank Draft, come out here, go to our data sources, oops, keep going to databases, don't ask me why. So we got FF Rank Draft, come here, we'll create a project. Now what I can do is I can look at, any given player. Let's go ahead and just start making a table view here. And let's throw on their position and their points and their year rank and their position rank and what their overall pick was. And even if I come up here and create a filter on position, so notice here, let's see, actually, let's put a sort on this. So let's put a sort on their year rank. So again, we've got David Johnson back up at the top, Aaron Rodgers. So you can see David Johnson first in running backs, Aaron Rodgers first in quarterbacks. If I come here and select quarterbacks, those numbers don't change. So I can see that he was still the second ranked. He's first within the position. And I can see, where overall pick perspective. So we've got, a bunch of quarterbacks that were drafted. Dak Prescott, nobody called that. He went undrafted, but actually ended up being the 8th overall ranked quarterback. And I can see he was the 13th overall ranked player. So this is a good example of how you could take an original data set and use data flows to transform that to calculate something that's really hard to deal with calculating on the fly. Sometimes we transform data for performance reasons, but other times we do it because it's really hard to calculate everything that we want to calculate on the fly. And in this case, we wanted those sort of static rankings that didn't interchange based on what we chose up here in the filter bar. So that's an example of using data flows within the new DVD3 application. For DataViz Daily, I'm Kevin McGinley. Thanks for watching.